Money 1055 presents Money 2.0. Money 2.0. Now, Broughton on Business. This is Money 2.0.
Good morning, Sacramento. My name is Michael Broughton, and this is Broughton on Business. If you've just tuned in, this show is about business owners in the region and entrepreneurs that are doing great things. And I want to give you a little bit of background on myself. I am President and CEO of Blanket Marketing Group. We are a digital advertising agency here in the greater Sacramento region. We do websites, we do SEO, we do a ton of social media. And so that's been my background. I started this show because I am a serial entrepreneur. I love business. I love helping businesses grow. I love this Sacramento region, and I love what people are trying to do here. Entrepreneurship has been a passion of mine for a great time now, and I said, well, I want to do a show that really talks about what's going on, what people are doing, the good things that they're doing, the problems that they're having in business, and see what resolutions there are. So I developed the show for that reason. I'm very excited today. I have a dear friend and president and CEO of Goldman Communications, Ed Goldman, here, and we'll learn a little bit about Ed and what he's done throughout his career. Stay tuned.
This is Broughton on Business on Money 2.0, sponsored by Blanket Marketing.
Marketing can be like trying to change a tire while driving down the freeway in a high-speed chase. Truly challenging and exhilarating. Attracting customers will be one of the biggest challenges that you will face as a business. At Blanket Marketing, they can help with highly certified, educated, and trained experts in their field of digital advertising and marketing. They specialize in social media. Did you know they control all of the ad content and trivia on IMAX theater screens? 916-329-8600. At Blanket Marketing, they've got you covered.
This is Money 2.0 on Money 1055. Back to digital marketing specialist, Michael Broughton.
Welcome back. This is Broughton on Business. I'm here with Ed Goldman. He's president and CEO of Goldman Communications. And so we're going to spend some time this morning and talk to Ed about some of the things that he's been doing in this region and his just overall experiences in communications. So Ed, I just want to know, how did you get started in this industry?
Well, first of all, I want to say how glad I am to be here with you, Michael. I got started in marketing and PR somewhat by default. I had been working as a newspaper reporter in Long Beach when I was very, very young. It started when I was 19. And a friend of mine from college said an engineering firm needs some help promoting its image. And engineers at the time, as a lot of professionals, were very hesitant to get into doing marketing. They just thought it was kind of it was antithetical to their professionalism. But it was a really good firm. It was called Hugh Carter Engineering, owned by a man named Hugh Carter. And they were doing, in 1970 and 71, the first solar installations at schools that I'd ever seen. And so I asked my editor at the Long Beach Press-Telegram if they minded if I took a little moonlighting job doing some PR, and he said, no, just don't try to get anything you're doing about them into our paper. And I said, that's a deal. So it kind of it didn't work out exactly the way the editor thought, because the first thing I did is I got them into the LA Times, which was a far larger paper, and that kind of launched the dual career I've had as a writer and also doing public relations and marketing.
So how many years have you been a writer? How many years have you been doing this?
Oh, Lord. I started writing professionally at the age of 19. I am now 63, so I think that's 44, but I could be wrong. 44 years. It's, and I'm just now learning to spell, so I'm very proud, very, very proud of that.
So over the years, obviously you've written about a lot of different people, whether it's events, things that are happening in business. What would you say is the most interesting piece that you've ever written?
Well, people will say this, they'll say, well, it's the one I haven't written yet, and I actually do feel that way. I'm interested in everybody I interview. I think in all the profiles and all the books I've written, articles I've written, and 3 books, I think I've maybe disliked one interviewee in all that time, whose name I won't reveal on the show, but it was just just kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. But everybody has a story to tell, and they're very lovely and gracious to tell them to me. I really enjoy people.
So, if you had to name like a famous person that you interviewed, who would you say is the most famous person that you've interviewed thus far?
Oh, I've interviewed a number of famous people over the years. Most recently, I think one of the more enjoyable interviews I did was with Dr. Oz and his wife, Lisa. They were in Sacramento to promote their getting youths into shape and getting them to think about nutrition. And we had this Pat Mulvaney, the restaurateur, arranged for a room in his restaurant for me to just meet with Dr. Oz and his wife for about a half hour. And it was very funny. It was a real enjoyable interview. He's exactly the way he seems on TV. And at one point, he had such standard sort of pat answers to things, which, a celebrity will do that I turned and started asking his wife questions, and he didn't like that. And so he finally said, I asked her something, and he said, "I'll take this one, Lisa." And then we were, back to him. But he was a lot of fun. I've interviewed governors, senators, congresspeople, movie stars, TV stars, local TV celebrities. And they've all been just wonderful to deal with because, well, they're in a business where they are their business. They like to talk about themselves. They know how to market themselves. And it's while I'm serving as a sort of a conveyor of their message, you can ask questions that throw them off a little bit, take them out of their comfort zone. And that's always fun, not because I want to trip them up, but because you want something a little more candid, a little more unrehearsed. And that's always fun. And I years ago when my daughter was considering becoming a journalist, and she does write for the Inside publications and Sacramento Magazine and Sacramento Bee occasionally, she dogged me for a day. She shadowed me when she was in high school, and I did about 3 interviews during the day. And at the end of the day, I said, "Well, what did you think?" And she goes, "You're like Columbo." And I said, for the old TV show with Peter Falk, and I said, "Why do you say that?" She goes, "Because, just when they think you're done, you ask another question and it throws them off." And I said, "I guess that's a compliment." But it's really it's the unrehearsed question. You want people to just be themselves. And I won't say that when I sit down with them, I try to make them feel falsely comfortable. I try to make them feel actually comfortable. And then we just have a conversation. And I think the best advice I ever got about interviewing people is don't interview them, talk to them.
That's excellent. That's actually a great point. And so, Ed, I had an opportunity to pick up your book, which is, by the way, amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So you have so many interviews in there and just stories. I mean, it's just a whole lot of information, very interesting. What would you say in your book, what stood out the most to you? Which one that you said, "Hey, you know what? I've got to write about this. I've got to make sure this one's in the book."
Well, actually, I must say, I write a daily column for the Sacramento Business Journal. It's online every day and in print once a week. And so that's a whole lot of pieces. I've been writing it since August of 2011. And so there were well over 140 to choose from. And my editor at the Business Journal, Jack Robinson, he made the first cut on all of these and did a wonderful job arranging the pieces. It's very hard to edit and kind of organize your own work like this. So he broke them into sections on celebrities I have touched and or known, and he broke it into one of my column is kind of a mixture of a couple of times a week I'll just have commentaries on things, and they'll always be fairly satirical. One of my constant topics is government-funded studies that from the sort of the Department of Obvious. The study will reveal that people who get more sleep at night do better at work. Sitting down too long is detrimental to your health. And it kind of goes on from there, where it's just like, if you've been sensate for most of your life, you know these things. So I'll do those. I'll do commentaries, and I'll get ideas for those from, I get 3 newspapers a day, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the Sacramento Bee, and of course the Sacramento Business Journal online. And there'll be articles covered from all over the world, all kinds of topics, and they'll be very funny topics, and I'll kind of run with them. And then the other days I will do profiles of people. And in fact, Michael, you're in my book because I profiled you sometime as a serial entrepreneur, as the way you described yourself. And the book is called But I Digress, Daily Profiles and Punditry from the Sacramento Business Journal. And it's selling, actually, reasonably well. And I say that it's funny. I got a royalty check last week for $5.12. So I thought, okay, that's got to have some equivalent value somewhere. So I called IHOP, and I kind of tried to find out what I could get for $5.12. It turned out I could get a pretty good short stack breakfast. So I can now literally say that my book is selling like hotcakes.
So what inspired you to write this book?
Well, the book itself was I was inspired. I'm inspired every day to write the column. The book idea came, I think, both to the editor and to me as just let's collect these, because I have two previous books that came out in the 80s and 90s, which were collections of some of my humor pieces for different magazines. One of them was my first book was called How to Incorporate Your Dog and Other Solid Business Tips. And that sold actually pretty well. The second book, I think we all thought we let the ego get in the way. And so we called the second book On Goldman Pond. And that was the second collection, and that sold extremely well among people with my DNA and surname, and not too much wider than that.
So, obviously, you're probably going down the road to another book,
Possibly
in the future?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a title for it. It's called "Who Could Ask for Anything Less," but I'm not sure. I'm not sure any publisher is going to want to touch that.
That's awesome. So, Ed, obviously you've been a writer for quite some time, and as you know, with writing, there's just different styles. What would you say your writing style is?
Oh, well, I'm big on spelling correctly.
That helps.
I tell you, it's interesting. Ever since I was a little kid, even in the most tragic and horrible of circumstances, I have found something kind of amusing in it. Not the actual horrible incident, but the way people react to it, the very human way people react. And so even from the time I was writing very serious essays or very serious reports on things, I would somehow find something silly in it, the silly aspect of human nature that I'm certainly a victim of myself. So I would say that I kind of have a jaundiced eye, a sardonic view, my tongue in my cheek, any way you want to put that. It's very, very hard to take somebody very seriously well, I'll give you a good example. If somebody sits down with me for an interview and they say, I'm this kind of person, and then tell me, I realize immediately, no, they're not that kind of person. This is the kind of person they want to appear to be. And what they really do is, in conversation, people will reveal themselves, and that's much better. And of course, by their actions in life. Somebody once said that action is character, or character is action, or character is what you have when nobody's looking. And I believe in that, and I like people when people get very authentic in interviews. And when you think about it, it's difficult. It's difficult for the interviewees, because in some cases they're meeting me for the first and last time. I'm going to spend an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours with them. They've lived a very interesting, exciting, action-packed life, or not, but it's theirs, and it's their life. And here I'm coming in to just sort of pop in, almost like a fop, a dandy, just saying, tell me about this. That's enough. Thank you. Goodbye. And so I think the burden is on them much more than on me, and I try to treat people with a great deal of respect for just sitting down with me. And I must say, the people I've interviewed have been just wonderful, except for that one person I was mentioning earlier.
So, I was going to ask you, you talk about being, authentic. And so with that, have you ever interviewed somebody, I'm probably sure, and you sat down with them and you're kind of like, asking them questions, and you feel that it's scripted, like they're giving you an elevator pitch. They're not trying to be themselves, and
right, and that's when I try to ask the unexpected question. It's actually one of the reasons I rarely use a tape recorder in an interview, because I found I'll do that if somebody's going to talk about something highly technical it'll just go flying by me if I don't get it. But I find that if you bring a tape recorder and you put it out there, you lay it on the table between you and the interviewee, they start talking to the tape recorder and they actually lean forward and address it as opposed to making eye contact with me and just kind of relaxing. So, and sometimes there's some people who get very nervous just seeing my pen flying as I'm jotting down what they're saying. So I sometimes just stop doing that and just talk, and then as soon as there's a pause, I catch up really fast with what their quotes are. And I got to tell you, I've been very lucky in all the years I've been writing. Nobody's ever accused me of misquoting them in something. The only incident that was sort of funny about it is an article came out, and actually this was in the Business Journal about a year and a half ago, and they just read me the riot act on the phone about what I quoted them as saying, blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, I'm actually sitting here looking at the notes from the interview. And I said, you said all this stuff. And he goes, I know I said all that, but why'd you use it? And I said, so I kind of had to rest my case at that point.
And so how do you feel? A lot of stuff is online now. You can find a ton of information. Your column is online. How do you feel that web and just technology in general is affecting your industry?
Well, I think it's great. I think it's great because it brings news faster. It also brings, anybody can put anything online, as we know from tweets and all kinds of Instagrams, Facebook. Facebook is kind of the world's largest collection of really uninteresting data I ever could have imagined. But it's fun, and people are engaged, and people are doing things. A lot of people my age and with my years, of sort of traditional journalism, are very upset about the change, and I'm not. It's just another one of those things you adjust to. It's sort of like I remember years ago when the feminist movement first took hold, and there were demands for saying things like, don't say he all the time in a third-person reference when it's a woman. Like everyone should know his manners. How about his or her manners? And there was a lot of griping among veteran journalists at the time, and I thought, what's the big deal? It's really easy. So anyway, so I think it's fine. I think it's fun. The only thing it's done with me is affect reprint rights, because it used to be I would write an article and then I might sell it again. Well, now I write an article and it goes viral and there's nothing I can do about it.
So do you tweet, Ed?
Oh, yeah, I do. The Business Journal got me doing that. And I tell you, there's one ridiculous story about it. I was tweeting pretty regularly, and I had about 37 followers. I stopped doing it for about, I would say 3 or 4 months. And I looked up my Twitter account, and it had tripled the number of followers, and I hadn't done anything new in months.
They wanted you back.
Or they really weren't paying much attention to what was out there, so it was okay. It was kind of funny. I liked it. And I try to tweet about once a week because the daily column stuff is pretty demanding as far as time. So
what do you see yourself doing in the future? I mean, you're going to continue writing columns, books. Like, what's next for Ed Goldman?
Well, I got to tell you, pretty much the same thing. I love to write. I'm a songwriter, and a musical I wrote years ago was produced, and I'd like to see. I wrote the book, music, and lyrics for it. It was called Friday at 5, and the Sacramento Theater Company did 2 productions of it, and many performances. And so I'd like to keep doing that because I love songwriting. I love how much you can say in a very short amount of time. And that's kind of why I like columns. I suppose I'd like to sell another screenplay or 2. I've sold things to Hollywood before. And I suppose there's a novel in me somewhere. I've tried my hand at it. But what I really enjoy doing is writing the daily column. I've never had, in the past 2.5 years, I've never had so much fun writing as doing this column for the Business Journal.
That has to be tough. I mean, being a creative person and like yourself and doing that daily, like what's your process? Because it's kind of like, okay, well, now you got to create. Now the next day, now you got to create. Now you got to be creative. It's like an ongoing thing. Do you have a certain process, a place you go and say, okay, this is the hours I dedicate? Like what's that like?
Well, I cry a lot. That's an old Jose Jimenez line. They asked him what he was going to do in space when he was an astronaut. He said, I plan to cry a lot. Pardon me. I think I have a process which is just spontaneity. When I feel like writing, I go and write. A lot of writers will get up in the morning and, excuse me one second. I was the dentist before this interview. They'll get up in the morning and they'll say, I have to do so many words per day. And I don't do that. Sometimes I'll write the column of several days in advance just so I know in case I get uninspired that I'm covered. But generally, no, it's just that what I do is once I start writing, and I generally write the whole thing. I rewrite it many times as I'm working on it, but it's sort of like I like to get in that groove and stay there.
So we're going to change gears a little bit. You know, you spent a great deal of your career writing about individuals, entrepreneurs, and businesses, what's going on and what they're doing very well. And I'm like, okay, well, he's writing about them and what they're doing and how they're giving back. But you do a ton of stuff that people don't know about. Like, you are like embedded in the Sacramento community. You give back a lot. Can you tell me a little bit about the organizations that you're involved in?
Well, I've been on a number of volunteer organization boards. It's very kind of you to note that, Michael. I like to say I'm easily bored because I seem to keep getting on boards. I've been on, my current entanglements are the Arts and Business Council of Sacramento, which I'm very proud of, and to be on it. I'm president of that board, but we'll be stepping down any minute now if we find somebody else willing to take it on. I recently joined, about a year ago, the Blue Line Arts in Roseville, which is a wonderful art gallery. And I noticed that they had been getting more and more interesting shows and kidnapping a lot of Sacramento artists, and they're doing really interesting stuff out there. They have wonderful programs for children. I've been on the board of Weave. I've been on the board of the March of Dimes. I've been on the board of the Sacramento Theater Company, the Sacramento Philharmonic / Opera, the Capitol Stage Board. So most of my involvements tend to be related to the arts and humanities. Just because I think it's so important. I grew up in New York. I was born in Harlem. I lived in the East Bronx till I was about 8. And even then we had art programs as was part of our day as little kids. And when I moved to Southern California with my parents in 1958, the schools I attended there, we had art every day. And in junior high school, we had music appreciation. I heard the first piece of music that has become my favorite all my life, and that's Fingal's Cave by Mendelssohn, because somebody explained to me what was going on. But, art doesn't always have to be explained to kids. They either sense something or they don't. So I love being involved in the community. I love being involved in Sacramento. It's been a wonderful home to me. I've lived here since 1976. And I met my late wife, Jane, here, and we had a 29-year marriage that was just wonderful. And I just kind of grew up in Sacramento, even though I came here as a fully formed human being.
So, looking back at your time in New York on the East Coast and just talking about art and being kind of a thing just of every day, like, you're ingrained in that daily. And coming over to Sacramento, coming over to the West Coast, California, obviously I know you've seen a big difference in terms of the appreciation of art and what people are currently doing. What do you feel that we're doing as a region to kind of get there and to appreciate art more and really embrace it?
Well, that's a wonderful question. I think just what we do in the Arts and Business Council, just the fact that arts and business are allowed to coexist in the same title or sentence is pretty significant. I think what we do is we work with businesses to show them that committing to art or having some of their young entrepreneurs get a feeling for art is really helpful, because people will say the civilizations aren't going to be remembered because they met all their sales quotas. They're going to be remembered for what they contributed to the culture and to the art. And I found, from the time I came to Sacramento, I was 26 years old, I found it had a very vibrant art scene that was kind of under the radar. There were some wonderful artists painting then. That was right before the 1980s funk movement. I have to be careful how I pronounce that on the air. FUNK, which produced such artists as the late David Gilhooly, Maya Peoples, Anne Gregory, some wonderful, wonderful, vibrant stuff. And so when I got here, when I got here, the city council consisted of Mayor Phil Eisenberg at the time, Councilwoman Ann Rudin, who went on to become mayor for a couple of terms, Bob Matsui, who went on to be a congressman, Lloyd Connolly, who went on to be an assemblyman, then a judge. And I came up here and I thought, how long has this place been going on? This is kind of a brain trust. And I got out meeting people because I came up here to be the city's public information officer, and that involved me going to a lot of things and knowing what was going on in the city. And I just thought Sacramento was a great, badly kept secret, because and I say badly kept because it actually was well kept in that you didn't know about it. It was bad because it shouldn't be a secret. And this notion that we have sometimes now about wanting to be a world-class city, one of the most overrated terms imaginable. We are, and we have been for a really long time, and we just don't need to talk about it all the time. We're exactly what we are. We have a vibrant art scene. We are the most diverse city in the United States, according to a 2002 study by Harvard. That became a subject of a Time magazine campaign or article. And I just think the more we don't take ourselves quite as seriously and worry about, I certainly was very much in favor of keeping the Kings in town. I'm very much in favor of the arena. I'm very opposed to the Stop campaign about, so I love seeing those things happen. I love seeing the city expand and increase its sphere of influence. But as far as the phrase world class or anything, who cares? Really, who cares?
That's excellent. So you had a long career and continue, like you're very engaged. And so what would you say throughout your career, and maybe earlier on, what would you say? Do you have any regrets? Have you made any mistakes along the way in your career? I know you probably have a funny story of something that you did earlier on.
Well, I make mistakes constantly. It's actually finding a day that I don't make a mistake would require sonar, radar. And actually, I got to tell you, when I make mistakes in business or in my writing or as a person and as a boyfriend or anything like that, it's more fuel for my writing. It's just something that helps me. I end up writing stuff about it, just some of the boneheaded things I've done and do and will continue to do. You asked me a moment ago, what do I plan to do? What's next for me? More of the same mistakes and maybe brand new mistakes that I haven't even considered yet.
Okay, what I want to hear is Ed Goldman's funniest moment.
Again, I don't think it's happened yet. This could be it right now because I'll be speechless. I think one of the most ridiculous things that ever happened to me was I was interviewed by 60 Minutes in 1981 or 2. I was an assistant director of the UC Davis Medical Center. They had hired me away from Sacramento City Hall because the Med Center was in just a lot of trouble with two of its services. Its kidney transplant service and its open heart surgery service. And so we were, I was doing interviews all the time. Newsweek branded us the killer hospital. And one day my secretary buzzed me, because secretaries did that in those days, and said, Ed, somebody is here in the lobby from 60 Minutes. And I laughed. And I said, right. And I hit the off switch. And then she did it again, and there was such a feeling of terror in her voice. I'm not kidding. And I said, okay. So I went out, and sure enough, in our reception area, there was a reporter from the CBS affiliate in Los Angeles, a camera person, a sound person, and a field producer. So there's a crowded office, and I said, well, you should actually be talking to the chancellor of UC Davis or whatever. And they said, no, we want to talk to you, because they all said they wouldn't talk to us. I said, okay. So I had them set up in my office, and I ran down the hall to the bathroom, but I have to clarify what that was for. I stared at myself in the mirror, which was never a pleasant thing to do. And I kept thinking, okay, I'm in close-up now on 60 Minutes. What is it they do to make everybody look like a liar? And I finally realized what it was is they'd ask you a question, leave your face in close-up, and then say nothing. And you, feeling awkward and thinking, oh, I can't let dead air go on, would end up saying something. So they'd ask you a question, and somebody would answer, and then they'd kind of look around and go, I guess I should say something. Well, I also killed someone. I mean, and it's just they get these dreadful confessions out of people. So what I did was, after I answered each question in the interview, I made a rather rude gesture with my finger, and it involved my nose. And I kept my finger in my nose and it was my middle finger, and I kept it in there until they would cut away and ask me the next question. And what I was doing is making it very hard for them to edit my answers or leave much space in between. These days with YouTube, you can bet I'd be all over the map with that thing, and it would be
viral.
Horribly embarrassing, too. Horribly embarrassing. But in those days, although using my finger, it would be digital. But in those days, they just liked burning that kind of footage. So the interview was successful. Instead of it going on 60 Minutes, they shuffled it off to the Sunday Night Evening News, which was anchored at the time by Dan Rather. And of course, it was all edited out. The 45 minutes I sweated buckets was edited down to about a 45-second interview.
That's awesome. Love that story. So Ed, for up-and-coming writers, like what would you recommend that they do, or how should they start their career?
Well, newspapers are great, and even though everybody says they're dying, they're not dying. They're just transforming. They're going online. There is a tremendous hunger for content on the web, and that's why I don't find it objectionable or it's bypassed me. My era is gone. It's fine. I think the two most important things to do if you write is read and write. Reading helps you see the effects that other people do. I've heard this, and it's very true, that you learn more from reading really bad writing sometimes than you do from good writing, because you learn what not to do. And the other thing I do, and I've taught at 5 colleges as either an adjunct professor or lecturer, and when I've taught writing classes, I do one thing that's very contrary to the accepted logic. I tell them, write what you don't know. Most people say, write what you know. Yeah, I got up this morning, I did this. Yeah, well, that's really interesting to you and nobody else. But I meet people all the time and write about them, and I didn't know what they did exactly until I sat down with them. And I'm no expert when I'm done, but I know a little bit more about another world. And the more you fill your head up with other people's worlds, the wider yours is.
So if you weren't writing or reading or making art, what would you be doing?
Hard to say. Because it's not something I can simply not do. I cannot not write. I can lay off painting, which I do a lot of too. I used to do a lot of, but I don't know. I suppose I'd love to teach again. That would be fine because I think it's a greatly underrated profession, and it's a very noble profession. And I did love teaching. I'd like doing that. I am a little old to be getting back into boxing, which I did when I was very young. At 63,
I didn't know that.
No, yeah, that's why your listeners can't see this, but I have knuckles that were not effectively taped when I boxed, and so every so often I'll look down and go, well, there goes the hand modeling career. Ain't gonna happen. But that was fun. I did that actually just when I was very young and was reporting. And on my lunch hour, which was at 4 in the afternoon, I'd go over to the Pacific Coast Athletic Club in Long Beach. And athletic clubs in those days were so much different from what we think of now. Now they're clean, they're immaculate, they have flat screen TVs going, and people are watching Oprah while they're exercising or whatever it was. And back then, I mean, they were grimy, slimy, unkempt facilities. And when I would go to box or spar a few rounds, I would be boxing with people whose nickname was like Tito Little Murderer Rodriguez or Paul Hatchet Face Johnson, whatever it was. It was just that these were guys who they were really serious about it, and this was going to be their life. So I loved it. I always loved watching boxing, and so one time I just sparred with somebody, and a manager said, their trainer rather said, you want to try boxing? So for the summer, I boxed and I did several matches, and I was not very good, but they could not knock me down, I think because I didn't have the sense to fall down. And so that was the only thing I really brought to the table. And to this day, I mean, I suppose I can get out of a bar fight by showing somebody my knuckles, but if they're drunk enough, it's not going to matter. They won't be able to see anyway.
So you can really take a punch.
Well, I can take a punch, yeah, but I don't deliver them really effectively. I think because everybody's still walking around.
That's funny. Okay, we're going to take a moment and take a break, and we will come back with more of Ed Goldman.
This is Broughton on Business on Money 2.0, sponsored by Blanket Marketing.
Marketing can be like trying to change a tire while driving down the freeway in a high-speed chase. Truly challenging and exhilarating. Attracting customers will be one of the biggest challenges that you will face as a business. At Blanket Marketing, they can help with highly certified, educated, and trained experts in their field of digital advertising and marketing. They specialize in social media. Did you know they control all of the ad content and trivia on IMAX theater screens? 916-329-8600. At Blanket Marketing, they've got you covered.
Blanket Marketing presents Broughton on Business. This is Money 2.0.
Welcome back to Broughton on Business. I'm Michael Broughton, the host. And so this show, once again, if you're just now tuning in, this show is about entrepreneurs, business leaders, people that are being effective in the community, doing great things. And so I have on my show today Ed Goldman, President and CEO of Goldman Communications, and we've been talking for quite some time about his career and the things that he's been doing. And so, Ed, we've been talking about your involvement in art. We've talked about, your books, you writing for the Business Journal, all these good things. What I want to ask you is, what do you want to be known for? When it's all said and done, what do you want to be known for?
Still being alive, I think, would be the main answer, Michael. But beyond that, my writing has always been, as far as professionally, that would be real important to me. As far as personally, I think the most important job I've ever had was being a father. And my daughter Jessica, who's 27, and she works full-time for KBIE. She's an excellent writer. She's a wonderful musical performer. She's in Actors Equity, which means the professional actors organization, and she's such a good, fine, talented person. And I credit my late wife with most of her development, really. But I think being a dad has been the highlight of my life. It really has.
So, Ed, what inspires you?
Everything, really everything. I've been singing Valerie V, the jazz singer and promoter, for a couple of years, and she's actually gotten into the groove of she'll see a really obscure article somewhere and go, "Is that something that you'd find funny?" And I'll go, "Oh, yes, it is." And and as far as there'll be all kinds of things. Whatever anybody takes seriously, I tend to question. Examples: Casual Friday. People are convinced that it's just great. What it is a perk employers give to employees that doesn't cost them a cent. And people think, oh, we got Casual Friday. And if you look the way a lot of people dress on Casual Friday, I've called it Casualty Friday, actually. Not that I'm dressed up today, but it's, some people just really, you still want a workplace to look like a workplace, otherwise it's not a workplace. I've written about everything from office flirting, the ideal business lunch. One of the things that always amused me is when people talk about how they're multitaskers. And anybody who tells me they're a multitasker is not, or is not good at it. I multitask, but I confess that somewhat sheepishly, because now I'm probably not one, but I do a lot of stuff for a living. I've cobbled together a living for a long time, but I don't really talk about it. And I don't say, look, here I am multitasking. And when people say that, I usually find out, oh, good, you're really bad at several things simultaneously. And
right.
You're to be commended for that.
That's funny. That's so true, though. That's so true. I mean, I see a lot of people saying, I'm great at multitasking. Like, oh, what does that mean? And if you're good at it, that's just you. You don't talk about doing it. You just do it. Well, it comes naturally.
Absolutely. It's who you are. So I'm good at being me. Oh, well, good for you. It's years ago, I wrote a piece for a business publication. It might have been for the business section of the Sacramento Bee. I mean, it was a long while back, and I freelanced for them occasionally. And I wrote something about the staff time management. Pardon me. At the time, time management seminars were all the rage, and what struck me is that if you could find the time to attend a time management seminar, you didn't need to go. And that's the kind of stuff I like. It's irony. Management retreats have always fascinated me. or business, you're at your workplace retreat. You spend your week sitting next to people you barely can stand, and then your reward is that on Saturday you get to put on flannel shirts and go with them into a cabin for 2 days. So those don't always work real effectively. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. My latest thing that I find funny is the motivational speakers who they put new terms on things you've been doing all the time. I saw a show where a guy, they always kind of the same. They have a big whiteboard, they have a laser, they have a guy with either a handheld microphone or the microphone's attached to his ears, and he's sweating profusely, and he's yelling for like 90 minutes. It's like a performance, and they'll be talking about something like, the one I saw not long ago that really made me laugh, it was finding the why. And I thought, okay, this is kind of interesting. What is he doing? And really what it was is, why does your business do what it does? And it's a valuable question, and I will do that with clients. But it's actually kind of your value proposition, and that's been around for a long time. Sometimes you've actually gone as far as to put it into a mission statement, which is okay. I think years ago I was interviewed for a job at Hewlett-Packard, many years ago, in public relations, and they handed me while I was waiting their employee manual. And it said, the first sentence in the book was, the purpose of this company is to make money. And I thought, or make a profit. And I just thought, now that's great.
Right up front.
It's just clear. It's not, we just want to give back. We're just lovely people and all this kind of stuff. Now, they did give back and do give back quite a bit. But even before that became a cliche. But I just thought that was really direct. That was really good. So I tend to like candor. Friends of mine often say, I'm not deliberately rude, but if I say something that's less than euphemistic or political, people will say, "Oh, I forget you're from New York," and I say, "Well, yeah, but I think you find people who can euphemize in New York too. I'm just not one of them."
So Ed, that's funny when you talked about motivational speakers, how they kind of put a different spin on stuff that's really already been there and package it up 1995 and sell a ton of stuff. Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought about going that route, like being a motivational speaker, or telling your story?
Well, I do a lot of speeches, but they're generally. I'll talk a lot about. I'll give talks on working with the media, since my public relations work involves that. And I actually, when the Business Journal published my book, But I Digress, which is available at Amazon.com, they had me do about an 80-minute seminar just on working with the media, and that was tremendous fun. And I've, and having taught at several different colleges, as I was mentioning a little earlier, I'm used to getting up and doing that. But it's always, I always try to do something of substance without the nonsense. Or let's think of a new word to cram a bunch of old concepts into, like finding the why, And I wrote a piece about it for the Business Journal. Actually, I said, why not come up with other things? Let's find the who, and let's find the what, and let's find the where, and where can the where be? And I just kind of went on with this, and it's the kind of nonsense I like to write, but it's, I just, the world and all the content we have out there allows an awful lot of phoniness to seep through, and I think my job as a satirist or as a writer or just as a human being is just look at it and go and try to call it as it is.
So Ed, you kind of spoke a little bit about doing speaking engagements about how to interact with the media and really advising on that. And so I know there's a lot of business owners out there listening to us right now. Can you give me we have a few minutes left, can you give me just a few nuggets, what you think is very vital for a business owner if he has to work with the media or do something like what does that look like? Well,
it's a very good question. It depends. It depends on the exposure that a particular business or business person has to the media. I think the one thing you've got to do is realize they're not out to get you, unless you're lying, but nor do they work for you. I will get people, contact me rather constantly about getting their business or their client, into my column. And I will do it if there's a couple of things. Sometimes the business person or the PR person will not have read my column. So they'll say, well, can we get your column? Your name was given to us and all that. And I said, have you read my column? And it's actually not ego. When I say that, it's that, do you even know what you're trying to do? Or are you trying to match up something that's not going to be right? If, for instance, they have a client who has no sense of humor whatsoever, once I get a hold of them, they're not going to be really happy with the results, perhaps, or they're going to develop a sense of humor really quickly. I think you've got to research where you want to be, figure out what it is that publication or radio station or TV station or social media outlet likes to do. Do they cover anything like you? Figure out their demographic. Are they reaching the people you want to reach? The worst thing you can do is say, boy, you've got a really young company, and you go into some stodgy old publication, and it's not going to work. And similarly, if you've got a real old-fashioned kind of business, suddenly going after the social media without even knowing what you're getting into can be problematic. The one thing I think I would do is I would survey the media. I would ask what it is you think you're going to get out of it, and then go from there. Yeah.
That's amazing. Ed, it's been my pleasure meeting with you today and just getting some insights, some stories. I mean, you're just a wealth of information, and I really enjoy speaking with you. And so for those of you who are able to tune in and listen to Ed Goldman and listen to his fascinating career from interviews with the White House, from 60 Minutes, it goes on and on and on. But, what I get out of this interview is just how authentic you are. And when you interview people, that's all you want. You just want them to be authentic. You've done a lot of great stuff in the community, giving back, Ed. I mean, I'm currently sitting on a board with you, and so I see where your heart is, and I see what you do day to day, and it's just truly amazing. And so I just tip my cap to you and say, thank you for being a part of this Sacramento region and a part of the growth and just a part of doing good things and just being a good person.
Well, that's very kind of you, Michael. I appreciate it very much. You're very kind.
So this has been, like I said, this has been a great show and talking with you. And listeners out there, tune in next week as we'll be talking with Rhonda Staley Brooks from Big Brothers Big Sisters. And I'm Michael Broughton, and this is Broughton on Business. Thank you.
This is Broughton on Business on Money 2.0, sponsored by Blanket Marketing.
Marketing can be like trying to change a tire while driving down the freeway in a high-speed chase. Truly challenging and exhilarating. Attracting customers will be one of the biggest challenges that you will face as a business. At Blanket Marketing, they can help with highly certified, educated, and trained experts in their field of digital advertising and marketing. They specialize in social media. Did you know they control all of the ad content and trivia on IMAX theater screens? 916-329-8600. At Blanket Marketing, they've got you covered.